Frimpong, giving us some history and some tuition in a few other areas we would not ordinarily go thinking or talking about. The act of indiscipline in Ghanaian schools, which takes many different forms from truancy to downright unacceptable behavior, has been the concerns of citizens as well as governments. The increasing levels of indiscipline is not limited to our senior high schools alone, but the entire educational system across the nation. On Thursday, August 6, 2020, a Ghanaian young man took to himself or upon himself the liberty to have a right dig at our president. Thereafter, he rendered an apology. You would also recall that just recent weeks past, we had some coming from Chiana in the north. It cuts across from just anything, including vandalism and assaults. The worrying part being the insult they would hurl at our first gentleman, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the very man who introduced the free SHS, but for which some of them will not even have the opportunity to a second level education. Could this be blamed on the outlawing of corporal punishment in our schools, or the change in the code of practice and conduct of the way our schools are carried through? Our guest this morning, to my far left, is a parent. Not only that, he is a deacon of a church. Deacon Emmanuel Arthur. Welcome, Deacon.
Thank you.
And then, to my immediate left, he is a Reverend Doctor, Josiah Ando. Reverend.
Yes, bro.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I wish to hold back on your counselor title, but I can't hold it, so let me give it to you. Reverend Josiah is a counselor. He deals with, every other thing from family to anything else you can talk about. And this morning, they're here to help us make sense of all that we've seen or witnessed in recent weeks. Let's go to 2020 and take the video of the young man who came back remorsefully, whether genuine or not, to apologize to the president after he's had a go at him. And then we'll come to Chiana, and then we'll draw some comparative analysis of the issues, and then we go into the matters and learn from whatever they have to teach us.
Akufo-Addo, Sanchez Maximum, Akufo-Addo, also final year. Final year, Bele, Mamma Sauce and Beleji. Also, in your tough.
Mr. President, His Excellency Akufo-Addo from Bonincham, Mr. School Authorities from Bonincham, Minister of Education, Regional Minister, Mr. Obibia video affecting them, Mr. Obibia from Bonincham, Mayeni, Mijimu to Mijimu Fundu to Namayeni, Mr. Bonifeche, Mr. Ghana Funa, Mr. from Bonincham, 1 CPO, video me, 1 CPO, 1 family members of we need first and last, second of
Education office, and then our fellow Ghanaians. We are sorry for our videos that went viral. We didn't mean for it to go viral. It was a childish play. We are sorry and we are on our knees. Our education means a lot to us. It's our future. We are on our knees that the president should please call us back. And we call on to the teachers to join with us to plead that the teachers should call us back.
My name is Damili Jenner. I'm here to say.
Thank you very much for sticking and staying with us, as Valerie would always put it. Downright shameful, I'll say, if you ask me. Shouldn't they have thought about their education and their future and their families when they went out rubbing everybody's name across and through the mat? Well, as the videos played, we were joined by our last and final guests for this segment, Reverend Apostle Dr. Emmanuel Enim. He is an educationist. Apostle, Papa, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
My apologies for...
Thank you very much. We can understand. Traffic in Accra can sometimes catch you off guard, even in places where you don't expect.
And I've been coming all the way from Amanokrom this morning.
Wow.
So it's a bit of a distance.
Wow. All right, so let me start with you, Apostle. How did we get here?
Oh, good question. How did we get here? Usually when it comes to matters of discipline, culture, there are elements that we cannot ignore. The bottom line is that there are at least 5 institutions that should work as a process for us to have the best of results when it comes to human development, culture, and discipline. And that is the family, the nucleus and the extended family, the religious institutions, the church, the mosque, other faith-based institutions. Then the chieftain's institution, which is very critical. And of course, we can also look at our educational institutions. And then the last, but also not the least, and the more dicey bit, the social media as an institution. All these work together to influence people's persona, their character, and attitude. So how did we get here? The question is, what has gone wrong with these institutions? And we can unpack them.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me bring in Deacon Emmanuel Arthur. Deacon, some will argue that parents have left their role as parents to bring up their children. Indeed, the good old book says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when they're old, they will not depart from it. Is it the case that parents have become more worried about the money than about the future of their children?
That is the fact. Because one, are we putting the horse before the cart, or the other way around? We seem to think, and it's an erroneous impression, that you need all the money in the world to give your children the right training. Back in the days, our parents, most of them, mother and father, were not all engaged. They can't decide that the mother stays home. If she was working before, she could resign from work, stay home, and then the father goes to work and brings in the money. In this case, the world has evolved, and that the demand has gone up. So we are thinking you need all the money to give them the right training. But the issue is, who trains your children? Who gives them the direction? As you quoted, train up the child the way he should go, and when he grows, he will not depart from it. The training involves so many faculties, where a parent's role is needed. The teachers are involved, the chiefs, the opinion leaders are all involved. But the parent's role is critical, because we all are raised from the home first. Our first training starts from the home. So if we miss it there, or if parents miss it, then the work becomes difficult to handle.
Thank you. If you miss it, the work becomes difficult. Dr. Josiah, let me bring you. What is it that, from a counselor's viewpoint, you think will account or will influence young girls or boys these age to want to look at no less a person than the president, and, to put it crudely, tell him their peace of mind?
All right, thank you so much. I believe that the totality of what a person becomes, in fact, all of us sitting here, who we have become, depended on a lot of factors. From the crib, I mean, from the time that the child comes out to whenever the child is, that person is either old or still a teenager, till when that person is doing whatever he or she is doing, a lot would have happened. A lot would have happened from how the mother handled this baby, from how the father, siblings, and then when the child goes to school, and then, Apostle mentioned the church, the society. And today we have media, and the part that influences our children more, social media. So all these would have played a role. Now, for what we see happening, we see a society in which a lot of these systems, Apostle said institutions, but when these institutions come together, we can say a system, we have failed. And because we have failed in these systems, people become what they become. Now, what we see these children do is something that we see adults do on social media. The culture of insult.
So you think these were influenced by the behavior of adults?
It's a factor. Okay. In fact, the behavior of adults is a factor, but we can't say it is the only one.
Right.
Like I said, it started from the crib. And so a lot of things contribute to the discipline, to what somebody actually eventually becomes.
Right. Let me go to Deacon Arthur. How will you feel as a parent if your child comes home and says, "My teacher decided to whip me," and that he did? Anger, or you'd rather be interested in why the child was disciplined?
Let me start this way. I think if we categorize the parents, those who are pampering at home may take a different view of it. But for me, as a disciplinarian, and coming from
I like the use of that word, disciplinarian.
Yes, and coming from a hardcore parent who will not tolerate any misconduct, I will inquire. And my investigation will tell me what was the issue.
Right.
So if he has been wrongly mistreated, I think Giorgio will work. Because the teachers are our second arm of training, or another arm of training. So you cannot fault them if they discipline your child. But it depends on the merit of the matter. So if I listen and it was a mistake on the part of the teacher, I think I'll go to the school, sit with them, and then giving my advice or my concerns.
Apostle, let me come to you. Has the lack of a policy alternative to the banning outright of corporal punishment in our schools brought us what we see today?
I wouldn't say wholly so.
Okay.
To start with, how many teachers and how many of us parents even do know about the alternatives to start with?
Is there any alternative?
Well, because there have been a number of conversations going on.
Okay.
Right from the 70s through the 80s into recent time when government tried to put some restrictions in place. The bottom line is that what is the essence of corporal punishment, so to speak, or the whole idea of the methods that we use? The essence is to bring out the best out of the child or the person, and also to help set some boundaries. But I think there was this element of people also abusing that. And oftentimes, if you're not careful, you throw away the baby with the bathwater.
Right.
Some people are abusing this and that, and therefore we take it off. But when we take things off, we don't put anything else in place, clearly. So in a sense, my concern is that as a nation, as a people, we've lost something.
Okay.
It was happening gradually, and I think we took our eye off the ball. I remember when I was in primary school, in middle school, we used to have courtesy for boys and girls. We used to have civic education. Now the question is this: what were the content of this? How do you relate to your fellow colleagues and also to parents and to elderly people? We grew up in a culture where every elderly person was your big brother, your uncle, or your father. But there is something that happened. When I came, you were discussing something to do with how everybody is chasing after money. We are all trying to look at our comfort. In the 1970s, thereabout, there was a musician, a policewoman, Nanama, who sang a song. Sike, 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 abwa sike, see, that song was very loaded. She was reflecting something that was unfolding in society.
Right.
Where people's attention were gradually moving away from communality into individualistic and individualism, where money then was defining our identity and sources. And therefore, family systems were breaking down. Your cousins and your nephews, now when they want to visit, you need an appointment. You know, now we started building houses with walls, and beware of a dog. You couldn't just go in to visit. You know, these had social implications. Are you with me?
Yeah.
But somehow we thought it was fun. We were copying certain systems from the West. And once we were going through these processes, we were losing our moral high ground. It got to a point where, I remember when I was young, if you went out and you misbehaved and somebody spanked you, more likely your parents will spank you as well.
Sure, you get
so it's
double.
like you have disgraced the family.
Yeah, yeah.
But now it's my child. Who dare you to talk to my child that way? And that's why we are where we are now. So we cannot just look at one single institution, but I think our institutions need to rethink. And if this what has happened is just a wake-up call, and I think it's the tip of the iceberg.
This is about the third, you know, in a few years.
Yes.
That we have seen.
Yes.
There's a lot more that we have not seen.
The point is
Right.
that
Was it because these were bold to put you on social media?
Yes, because these happened at critical points.
Yes.
You know, and they were brought out, and they started flooding the social media space. But there are people who, someone may not even send it out there, but the tendency is there. Some will go and do it in a group somewhere, and and all. So the point is that this is that which has come out, but there is more happening around us. So the truth is, yes, there's a lot of indiscipline.
But did we get it wrong? Let me come back to Apostle. Did we get it wrong when we moved to ban corporal punishment in schools? And let me read the Ghana Education Services Directive here. It says corporal punishment, according to the Education Act 1961, the Ghana Education Services Code of Discipline for second cycle schools provide for caning up to 6 strokes by a head teacher or a person authorized by the head. Can this be the reason why we see what we see today?
I don't want to believe so. You see, when I use the analogy of the iceberg, you see, what you see at the top is just like about 10%. The real thing is underneath. You don't see. That's how iceberg behaves.
Yeah.
So the question is, we need to decode. Now, spanking a child or a person with a view of correcting is fine, but we should be also asking ourselves, why are they doing what they are doing? What is informing their thinking? To be honest with you, there are some people that when you spank them or when you beat them, you even harden them.
Okay.
Because just using the corporal, element or system doesn't necessarily take away. But it is to send a signal that this is unacceptable. Now, the idea of don't do it, it is not to say that do what you like.
Right.
But there must be something that achieves a better result.
Right.
And that is what we haven't been able to put in place.
Right. Right. Let me go to the fire and Dickie Manalata. Being a parent, will you support any advocacy to return corporal punishment? And if it should come back, do we stay with the 6 strokes? Or let's go back to the old ways?
I think we have been witnesses of several of these misconducts in various forms. And so corporal punishment in itself leaves with us some bad impressions. I remember in recent time, either in Ashanti region, a Juso area or so, if I'm correct, a teacher caned young ladies and they sustained some bruises on their bodies.
Yeah, but our parents does that to us at home, and it didn't really kill us.
Yes, it's true, but times have changed, and we have these human rights policies running through, which allows people to contest for their freedoms and liberties.
Okay.
So I would think that, yes, back in the days, our parents could go all length to punish us. Teachers were doing same.
Right.
But this time, I think we can review that.
Right.
The excesses of it could be taken out, so we find new ways of introducing some form of punishment that will meet the times in which we are.
Reverend Dr. Josiah, let me come to you. Looking at these videos, the young man later coming back to apologize, the girls coming back to apologize, walk us through what their thinking will be from what we have seen. How difficult or easy will it be to reform these ones? Because I look at them as people who are already hardened.
Yeah,
they lack respect.
That is very true.
They don't have any controls. So
That is very
how
true.
will you reform such a character? And do you agree with this? Is a double-barreled question. Do you agree with the dismissal of these from the schools?
Well, I personally think dismissal was a bad idea. And the reason for which I think it's a bad idea is, okay, so I'm dismissed, then what?
Okay.
The person is likely to become a liability to society. Because we all agree that education is actually going to help these ones.
Okay.
And so if we are taking them out of that which we believe is going to help them, where are we leaving them? What becomes their fate?
Okay.
So I personally think that dismissal is not the way to go. But I mean, before you asked an earlier question,
Yeah.
I would say I said it earlier, that who I become actually would not have started from this age. And so reforming these people would have to do with a whole lot of backtracking, because everything started from the time that the person was a baby.
Baby, yeah.
Now, for me, morals are formed before a child turns 8. Between 0 and 7 years, almost all the morals that you need for that child are formed. From 8 to about 13, these morals that are formed are actually becoming, the child is, trying to experiment and own them.
Okay.
But at the early stages, they are listening, they are watching, and they are copying what they see happening around. And they are picking a lot of things. And that is why the home is important, the school is important, the church is important, and the whole society is important. And in our era, media. These are very important elements that form morals in our children.
So is it your view that not controlling, especially a social media space, is what is also accounting for this?
It's a huge contributor. Because foul language, for example, I mean, how a child will speak or how someone will speak is dependent on I have a 7-year-old, I have a 3-year-old. They watch videos on YouTube, of course, under my control. But sometimes when they are speaking, you can actually see the influence of the videos that they watch, these cartoons. You see this influence on the way they speak.
Apostle, have we as older persons in society taken our eyes off our common communal responsibility where my brother's child is my child? And therefore, if they misbehave, it shouldn't be my brother's responsibility alone to correct them.
I think we've lost that a bit.
A bit.
Yes, and it is also costing us a lot. Okay, so the proportion is a bit of an investment. So, I mean, I remember raising my children. My children are adults, even a grandpa.
Oh, wow.
Yes, but the point is this. I quite remember, to be honest with you, I don't really remember using the cane on them. No. I remember once on one of them, once in their life.
On one of them?
Yes, when the person misbehaved. And I remember that clearly. And even that one, it was not in this country. But I tried to send a signal. But I think, apart from that time, and yet, by God's grace, we're able to give them a certain foundation and parameters to operate. And also lead them with examples. Because, like he said, you know, children learn from you. They learn from the things around them. And so parents need to pay attention. Now we are too busy.
Oh, I see.
Too busy. And the church also need to get the focus right. Seriously. Because we are talking about the ethical dimension, the moral dimension, but religion itself also plays into this. The social dimension. Look at how we even handle our chieftaincy institution. To be honest with you, traditionally, they are the custodians of the moral and the spiritual laws of the land through what we call the ancestral, system. But we have demonized a lot of the things that were holding us together. Are you with me? And then we have education system that seems to deconstruct so many things without serious reflection. And we are copying from somewhere I don't know. And now the center can no longer hold. That is why we are saying that we should look at it as a collective responsibility.
Okay.
And of course, it starts from the home. But we also have a system where the family system is constantly breaking down. You are having single parents, you are having irresponsible, fathers, and the mother had to leave the children with somebody and go and just find something so they can survive. And we don't have a social system that helps such people. What do you expect? So these children become so vulnerable and they become victims of the system in which they live.
I see.
And so it's a very complex thing and we need to look at it dispassionately.
Okay.
And take responsibility where we have to do so. But I think that the answer does not lie solely with the corporal element of it. It is a form of discipline. The essence of it is that don't withhold discipline from your child.
Don't withhold discipline.
That is a principle.
Okay.
When you read scripture from Proverbs, that is the bottom line.
Right.
So look at the cane or the stick as a metaphor.
Okay.
So what is it that you can do to achieve the same results? Are you with me?
Right.
So discipline is indispensable. But how do we go about it? The way you even speak to the child, the way you speak to your neighbor whilst your child is listening is critical. I'll tell you something that happened. Our neighbor had a child. Our neighbor's child, who had a child, was named after my wife.
All right.
Okay. Because I think they might have seen something in her. And so the baby had become like her granddaughter or something. Then one time she went to the house just to say hello. And then the child said something. He said, "How are you?" I said, "Jam, I am a bodia." And that time the child was like 4 years. And at that time the parents and people around, everybody was shocked. Said, "Stop, you can't do that." I said, "Well, no. She's saying what she has been hearing."
Exactly. Sure, absolutely.
So that is what the point is. She's reflecting the essence of the community. And that comes back to what he was trying to tell us.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not these children who have embarrassed us, but they also tell us the extent to which we have failed.
On that note, let me come to Deacon. Deacon, tell me, what do you think would be the mental state of these parents whose children these ones are, if they should see their children on social media, they've gone viral, everybody's talking about them? How would a parent feel when they see such things?
I think it will be in twofold. The parents who are really doing their work and those who are neglecting. Those who are neglecting have nothing to lose. But those who are doing their work and doing their bit in everything to make sure they raise good children, good-mannered children, they will be concerned. It will be a big blow to them. One, not to them alone, but to the entire family where they are coming from. And in the community, they will be pointed at.
Wow.
Yes. My dad made this quote, and I want to bring it to the fore. My late dad, Joseph Arthur, he said, the best legacy the elderly can bequeath to the young is a sound education insulated by godliness. So I think that we, in our pursuit to get the money to raise these children, there are things we leave behind. Parents go to church and leave their children at home. And these are bits and pieces that will take away your children from the way. So I think that as much as we try our best to find the money to raise them, we must also make sure we direct them the right way.
Finally, let me come to Reverend Josiah. Reforming these children, should the focus be just the children, or it would also be parents on the one hand and the children going through a certain counseling process in order to get them behaving right and also empowering parents to take control?
Okay, it will depend on the level at which there is that kind of disjoint between the children and the parents. Some parents have lost control of their children totally. So and there are some children who they are different at home and they are different in school. Now for
different identities.
Different identities. Right. So I mean, for such children, at home he's a good boy. The father will be so surprised to see that my son can do this or my daughter can do this. Now what it means is that that parent still has a hold on that child.
Okay.
For another one, he can do it even in front of the father, in front of the mother. In other words, the parent has actually lost control. When they become teenagers, if you didn't build a good bond with them while they were still growing, when they become teenagers, they begin to associate with people that they can better relate with. Therefore, you lose control. So when the parents have lost control and we need to work on reform, then we will need to work on the parent as well.
Wow.
So that the parent would better understand how teenagers behave, how they think, how they would want to relate, and then they can try to, but it's hard. I mean, we can't say it's an easy task. Okay. It's hard. So that the parent will know how to try to win back that alienation that was caused. But if the parent already has a good hold, then the focus will be more on this child,
right.
rather than trying to add the parent.
Let me give Apostle a final word. He kicked the start in, so let me bring the final word. Being the head of any of these schools, children or these kids coming back to school, and their parents firmly behind them, returning them to you to go through their education, how will you absorb them into your school, and what will be the measures to ensure that their behavior will not necessarily rub off the rest of your school's student population?
Well, thank you. I think that, first of all, each of these children needs some counseling, one-to-one counseling.
One-to-one?
Yes, definitely. No, they come from different homes, like he said. They found like-minded people, so they've connected. Yeah, we need to be able to help them unlearn.
Okay.
Yes, and that process takes time. It's part of a healing process. See, some of these things that come from people, they are reacting to something deeper. You know, some kind of frustration, some kind of dejection, and all the rest of it. And they are just using foul language, unacceptable language. So we need to help them to really begin to appreciate the sense and essence of values and what it is that one should live for and behave like this and not that. Are you with me?
Yes.
And so we need to engage them. And as you talk to them, the counselors will be able to find out what might have gone wrong somewhere along the line and help to put themselves together. That is one. But also, as a nation, we need to rethink the family system and see what people are actually going through at the grassroots, and what is it that we can do as a nation, as a people, to address a problem that can come back to haunt all of us.
So let's go back to live as a community, not as individuals. Thank you very much. It's been great having this chat with you. We couldn't have gone anywhere.